Today we will be taking T-notes on respiration and ventilation. Respiration is the chemical process that produces energy for the body. This is done for the purpose of muscle contraction, to maintain our body temperature, anything that we need our body to do to function, to survive. This requires respiration. It results from processing chemical energy, stored energy. For example, when we eat food, or when plants use sunlight, this is a form of respiration. A lot of people tend to mistake this as breathing. When we say respiration, we are not talking about breathing. In the scientific term, respiration and breathing are different. There are two different kinds of respiration. One is known as aerobic respiration, and this is where energy is produced with the use of oxygen. When oxygen is present, we are able to produce energy. And this is why we have, for example, aerobics. Aerobics takes oxygen. So that kind of exercise, that kind of movement requires oxygen. That's where we get the term aerobic. That oxygen must be present in order for this to happen. So with aerobic respiration, oxygen must be present in order for this kind of process to occur. This combines oxygen and carbohydrate, which in this case is glucose, in order to produce energy. Here is the word equation for this process of aerobic respiration. We have oxygen plus glucose, resulting in carbon dioxide, water, and our energy, which is known as ATP. For every one molecule of glucose that is used, it is able to produce 38 units of energy, known as ATP. This is extremely efficient. With anaerobic respiration, energy can be produced without oxygen. So when oxygen is not present, we can still have respiration. It is, however, not as efficient as aerobic respiration. It happens for short periods of time. Your body cannot continue to do anaerobic respiration for longer periods. It is a process that occurs when muscles do not get enough oxygen fast enough, and we still need to supply energy to the body in order to do what we want it to do. We still need that energy, so therefore we have anaerobic respiration that takes over at this point. When we have anaerobic respiration, it produces lactic acid, which is a poison. It's a toxin to the cells. The word equation for this is that glucose yields lactic acid plus a small amount of ATP, which is our energy that we use. It is less efficient by producing only 2 units of energy for every molecule of glucose respired. You may have never heard of ventilation, but ventilation is what scientists call breathing. So the process of inhaling and exhaling, that transportation of oxygen around the body is called ventilation. The parts that are involved is the mouth, the nose, the trachea, which is the windpipe that is located in front of your esophagus, the ribs, and these are the muscles that are in between the ribs. These will contract and relax in order to help you to breathe. The diaphragm, and this is a flat muscle that is below the lungs. And then, of course, your 2 lungs will also help you in order to complete the process of ventilation. Here is a diagram to show you the parts that come into play with the process of ventilation. So here we have the trachea. The air would enter in through the mouth and the nose, going down through the trachea. Notice how the trachea breaks off into 2 branches, and these 2 main branches are called bronchi. 1 bronchus, 2 bronchi. Each bronchus goes into one of the 2 lungs, and each bronchus then splits into many more pathways for the air to travel in the lung, and these are called bronchioles. At the end of the bronchioles, there are many little sacs that can hold air, and these are called alveoli. At the end of each air sac or alveoli, there are many capillaries that are flush, that are next to these sacs, so that the oxygen can transfer through the membrane of the capillary into the blood system and then be pushed throughout the body where oxygen is needed. Another component of the body, which is important in the process of ventilation, is known as the diaphragm, and that is this thin layer right here of tissue that is located underneath the lungs. This will help to expand and contract the lungs. Let's talk about how oxygen transfers to the blood. You do want to draw this flow diagram, and if you want to, you are more than welcome to add that, of course, it does start with the air entering through your nose and your mouth. After it enters in through the nose and the mouth, it will enter in through the trachea. And the trachea will then divide into two branches called the bronchi. Each of the two bronchi will go into each of the two lungs. Smaller tubes that branch off from the main bronchi are called bronchioles. And then on the ends of those are tiny air sacs. These air sacs, or alveoli, are then flush. They are next to capillaries, and the oxygen will be able to travel into the blood vessels. Now let's talk about the steps of ventilation and go into more detail about what happens. The first step of ventilation is known as inhalation, and this is where the ribs and the rib muscles contract. And when the rib muscles contract, the diaphragm also contracts, lowering and flattening. And so what happens is that the rib cage will get bigger, it will expand. And as this rib cage expands, the air pressure will decrease and the air moves into the lungs, as seen in this diagram. You feel free to sketch this if you feel like it will help you to understand. The second step and the last step of ventilation is called exhalation, and this is where the intercostal muscles, they begin to relax. As the rib muscles relax, the diaphragm also will relax, thus pushing up into the cavity. The result is that the rib cage will get smaller, so it is going inwards here towards the center. The air pressure will increase, and therefore air will now move from the lungs out of the nasal cavity and into the air. All right, we've reached the end of our TNOTES. Please make sure you understand the information and be ready to apply this in class next. Have a great day.